The fact that really happened to Hugh Glass in 1823 is very impressive. It's inspiring true events, and the fact that a man is attacked by a creature like a bear like that and then be an abandoned.
I'm being honest, you know, it was more so being able to work with Alejandro on a film like this. I think that to do a film like he was saying, this screenplay, I think, had been floating around for a while and logistically was very hard to pull off from a cinematic perspective. But there was something in Alejandro's eyes and the way he articulated this yearning for wanting to immerse himself in nature. It almost seemed like we were going on a Mecca, so to speak. It was more than just doing a movie. I think he wanted to, by submerging ourselves in the elements like that, extract the poetry of what the story actually was. And that to me was you know, the most enlightening and exciting thing about making this movie. What would this journey be like for us, and how would that ultimately shape the narrative of the story? And I have to say, you know, it was an endurance test for all of us. It was a very difficult undertaking, but it was incredibly exciting to be a part of a very a unique creative process like this with he and Shiva, of shooting a film where, you know, we would rehearse all day long intensively and then have this hour and a half of magic light and all the conversations, this existential conversations we'd have about man versus nature, you know, the influx of capitalism coming out, you know, west from the east, the destruction of our natural resources, what it does to mankind, greed, all these things, all these, you know, conversations that we had and experiences that we had really shaped what Revenant was, and I think ultimately informed the ending of this movie. And we kind of knew that by that immersion we would extract something different from what was just on the page, which was a great jumping off point.
In a way, an aesthetical option, but it was a technical no-brainer, and there was no choice, no matter how I will do it. So it was the best way to do it. And when you capture the scenes in this hour, in this hour, the magic hour, the landscapes, the spaces, is when God speaks and is the ecstasy of the nature. And then the film is in ecstasy all the time. It's like to be in drugs because the light is just absolutely pure, and that's how it looks. And Chivo is the master of light, as you know.
And a story that's well recognized in American history, that kind of formed a skeleton for what became the body of the film. And I think for me, as much as I wanted to do a service to the men that we were all representing, you know, as trappers, as frontiersmen, the things that I guess I really felt I needed to weave into my portrayal of Jim were fundamentals, like, you know, where he originated from, his age, his accent, etc. Did my best to get in the ballpark of 1823 Southeast Virginia. Wasn't familiar with it. Had to brush up on that slightly. But for me, the main aim, and I think this is what me and Alejandro kind of connected over, was representing, you know, a boy trying to make that transition to become a man, perhaps the man that he eventually goes on to be. But I think Jim, at least in this story, and when we find him, has not yet grown up. And, you know, that's evident in the various different scenarios he finds himself in, where he's unable to, you know, find out what the right decision is and where he really struggles.
Certainly we had to be on these locations, not only for the beauty that nature gave us, but I think the savagery as well. I think the adaptability that we needed to have as an entire production was tremendous. I mean, we would come into sets one day that was filled with 6 feet of snow, and that would just evaporate in one night, and we'd be left with, you know, a prairie for two solid weeks. So we had to invent other stuff to shoot. We started getting into dream sequences, or, you know, we'd have another scenario where, you know, there would be a river flowing through, and all of a sudden a storm would come through and the entire landscape was a frozen icicle. These were all things that we constantly needed to adapt to, and logistically I think it was incredibly difficult on a constant basis. But all the sort of all the things that nature gave us and provided us is up there on screen, things that we could have never predicted. I mean, my last day on set was insane. We had an aurora borealis up at the top of this peak of this mountain, and we were doing that last bit of dialogue, and I was set to go home, and then Chivo and Alejandro go, look, an aurora borealis, and they went and grabbed the wine and shot there for the next day.
I bet you that nobody of you have get drunk with an aurora borealis. It was rocks. But honestly, it was true. I said, cut! And that was the last day of Leo. We were in Portus Mountain, and literally it was an aurora borealis. So I don't know, somebody was like, okay, bye, Leo.
Chivo created the aurora borealis.
The whole process of having to rehearse the entire day and then have this magic sort of hour and a half where we need to cram everything in, I think that intensity lent itself to the actual, the end result of the movie. I mean, we felt like we were doing live theater every single day. Otherwise, we'd have to bring the entire kit back, 3 hours up to a different location and be there again the next day. So we all felt this surge of intensity every single day we're there. And the truth is, the most fun part of it for me was being able to watch, Alejandro and Chivo when they did accomplish what they needed to at the end of the day. Because when you say they got the shot in 45 minutes or an hour, and then all of a sudden they'd have a half an hour of playtime, so to speak. You know what I mean? They really turned into like these young independent filmmakers with an 8mm camera running around with 300 crew members behind them, dripping leaves and ants, and then me with a bison skull on my head, and dream sequences. It was fantastic to see that energy from them, and it really it charged you up and made you realize while you were there, because a lot of it was so meticulous and so structured during the day. It was really like working a Swiss watch. Every single department needed to be exactly on point, and the timing needed to be exactly correct, because what they achieve in this film, which to me is so groundbreaking, especially with some of these large, action sequences or, very intense landscapes, is the fact that they have incredible intimacy with the characters as well. I mean, that opening shot where you get the perspective of almost every single character is not only groundbreaking, but they're able to combine a David Lean style, wide cinematic landscape, and then bring you right into the, the thumping heart of the fear of one of the characters, and then whip right back around to something that seems to be seamless, and it's a combination of so much knowledge of film history and filmmakers all into one. I mean, it's Kurosawa, it's Tarkovsky, it's I Am Cuba, it's Treasure of the Sierra Madre. It's all these films, that I think they have been influenced by, and these are the two men at the top of their craft, really creating unbelievable magic. So it was I think it was a real honor for all of us to just sit back and watch what these men created on a day-to-day basis. It was pretty flabbergasting, and we were all constantly blown away and just trusting what they did.
The power and the emotional core and the way to sustain it would mean nothing. You know what I mean? So all that was basically just the form, but the power and the emotional and the intimacy and the thing, it was carried by all of them. So
the problem is he had to make a decision. He didn't want to have to make a decision, but he found himself in a position where that's what was necessary, and he made the best decision he could, and it ends up haunting him. I always thought that, you've got to fight for your character, right? So I always felt like my guy was the best man in the film, you know what I mean? That was always even though he doesn't start out that way necessarily, that he gets somewhere great, and I'm sure everybody here would say the same thing about their character. But so he makes bad decisions, but I believed in him and I wanted to protect him and stand up for him. And so you just try and do that every moment.
The first saying that he watched over 100 different clips of bear attacks before started the sequence.
it became very gory after that. No, it's true. I think what Leo's saying is the research of how it happened is very important, because you know, all the Hollywood films are like this, they're like, rah, they're bad guys, right? All the animals in Hollywood have the human emotions. Or the horses do like, so I hate it. And these guys just feeding her cubs, you know, that's it. You know, and that's, there's no point. So I wanted to understand what happened. I don't know if you saw Grizzly Man with Werner Herzog, but when he's with the headphones, hearing what happened, I always wanted to know what he heard. And I asked Werner, what you heard? And he said, Alejandro, I can't describe it. Can't describe what I heard. It will be so disturbing for audiences. So he kept it from himself, which is a genius, obviously, directorial decision. But, you know, he explained me a couple of things that I was very surprised about it. And then I interviewed a guy in Montana who has written a book about, he has been around the world interviewing people that have survived or witnessed bear attacks. So he explained me every detail. And he was the one who told me, you know, the last sound that one guy will hear in his life is that kind of cow little thing of the cops. That's the last thing that you will hear. So if you are in the forest and hear that, bye-bye. That means that you will cross into a bear and cow. So anyways, it was to understand exactly how it happened and how it happened. And that took a little bit. And then obviously we spent time finding what the point of view will be the best to shot this in a way that it's, in a way, a document. I would like that it will be kind of a National Geographic or a horrifying document from a Japanese guy in a park seeing something, but at the same time with the possibility that you all can be experiencing what Leo was experiencing, what Hugh Glad was experiencing. So it was a combination of how. So that took us, again, Chivo and I did a lot of kind of things to understand what was the best. And then once we have an idea, then obviously we start talking with Leo, and then the three of us began to shape this and say, okay, what about this and what about that? And obviously it was just like a little blocking idea with some special effects guys and things. But honestly, I have to say that this is one of those little incredible things that, you know, that there was a pace of the scene. But once we get to the first stage of it, Leo was saying, what about if I do this and da-da-da-da? And then the pace that Leo got it informed all the camera mood, like all that cracking bone and that heaviness, which, you know, you never envision as a director, but when you see somebody really getting there, then all that thing we began to shape it every beat. And then Leo suggests, for example, the hand thing. You know, which I think is genius, because the hand is, what about if I try to grab him and then the hand, which is horrifying. So we were in a way discovering beat by beat together in a teamwork what it was best with the camera. So it's a beauty that you are basically storyboarding, but with human beings. You know what I mean? We were 3D, you know, shaping the thing, understanding the thing. Once we finished the choreography, then I will not tell you. but it implies a lot of tools. All the technical tools, analogic and digital tools available are applied here. And something that is something that I don't understand is that people, well, I don't know if people or filmmakers wants to say what the tricks behind. I think it's a mistake. It's like if I go to a magician in Las Vegas and then he opened the curtains, I said, what a stupid guy, you ruined me the show. I pay for you to make me believe, not to show me your fucking shit.
That is the moments of silence for me, you know? The tension that you feel as an audience member not knowing what the hell's going to happen next. And to me, why this sequence is so talked about by everybody seemingly is because it is quite revolutionary. We've seen so many action sequences before, but there's a weightlessness to it. This has a heaviness to it. This has a type of reality that I've never seen before, and certainly a man versus beast interaction or a fight of this magnitude, and the fact that he and Chivo achieved this thing where it almost feels like virtual reality at times, where you feel voyeuristic, like you shouldn't be watching the intimacy of these moments, the bear's breath, the sweat, the blood. It almost awakens other senses in you as an audience, you know. And I don't know how the hell they did what they did. There was a lot of different discussions, and I'm of course not at liberty to talk about, how we achieved it, but certainly being able to watch it for the first time, it was so visceral, so tactile, and it's one of those sequences that I think will go down in cinema history because you're literally on the edge of your seat, and he gave such life to this animal, this beast, all these creatures here, including myself, all the characters, everyone's just trying to survive. So is this animal, and the realism that he gave to this bear in this movie is fantastic. It's like he said, it didn't bring human characteristics to the animal, and it's incredibly authentic. Beginning of this entire conversation, all these undertones that aren't overt, that Alejandro didn't try to hit the nail on the head with, so to speak. And as he was saying that his portrayal of the Native Americans, I remember having these conversations with him very early on about the complexity, the difference between the tribes. But everyone in this environment is just trying to survive. All these people are trying to survive in a sort of lawless landscape. And what was interesting for me as a backdrop here is this time period. This almost it's almost like a virgin state in America. This province, this Oregon territory America was not sea to shining sea yet. We hadn't taken over this territory. It was a melting pot of all kinds of different cultures, and here we have this first wave of greed coming in to extract the resources. And what systematically happens, it's really a massacre of Native American cultures there, and it's the killing of the animals. And the next wave came cutting down the trees and the extraction of oil and the gold rush. It's this first wave of what was a pristine sort of Garden of Eden, so to speak, and man's sort of impact on the natural world and what happens to people as a result of that. All these things that we spoke about so much thematically during the course of the movie wove their way into the fabric of the movie in a very organic, non-overt way, which is what I appreciate about this film.